We all carry a shadow inside us. It's not something to fear, it's something to understand. This shadow is made of the parts of us we don't usually show the world, the feelings we hide, the thoughts we keep to ourselves, the urges we wish weren't there. Now picture yourself walking through a quiet forest at dusk. The air is cool and the sky is turning a deep, dusky blue. Tall trees rise around you, their leaves rustling softly, like they're sharing secrets. As the light fades, the shadows stretch and shift, blurring the edges of everything. And in that twilight, you start to notice things you never saw before, shapes that are unfamiliar, yet oddly comforting. That's what your inner shadow is like. It's not dangerous, it's not bad. It's simply a part of you, a part that longs to be noticed, to be understood, to be welcomed in. Take another slow breath for me. Feel your chest rise and fall. And with every breath, feel yourself sink just a little deeper into calm, into stillness, into safety. Think back to a time you felt angry, jealous, scared. It's okay. Those feelings don't make you weak. They aren't flaws. They're signals, pointing toward the parts of you that need care and compassion. Now, imagine walking further into that forest, deeper, softer. The trees part just enough for you to see a figure ahead. Maybe it looks like your younger self. Or maybe it's just a shape, a presence, a feeling. This is your shadow. And tonight, you're not running from it. You're meeting it gently. You're saying, "Hey, I see you." You're walking alongside it, listening. No judgment, no rush, just a quiet understanding. And something starts to shift. What once felt heavy now feels softer. What once seemed scary now feels familiar. Because when we accept our shadow, we stop fighting ourselves. We become whole. Take one more slow breath. Let it out nice and easy. You are not broken. You're not too much. You're not too little. You are layered, complex, beautiful. A whole person made of light and shadow, woven together into something real, something human, something deeply, truly enough. Let that truth settle into your chest. Let it hold you. And as you drift off tonight, know this. You are safe, you are loved, and every part of you, yes, even the shadow, belongs.
Sadness, it's something we're often taught to avoid. Push it away. Hide it behind a smile. Keep moving forward. But what if we didn't? What if we just paused for a moment and sat with it? Go ahead. Close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath in and let it out easy. Feel the weight of your body, gently held by the bed or the couch or the ground beneath you. You're safe here. You're supported. Now, think back to a time when sadness came to visit. Maybe it was a dull ache in your chest or a tear that slipped down your cheek in the quiet of night. Maybe it came with the loss of something or someone close to your heart. Or maybe it was just that longing for something you couldn't quite name. Sadness isn't the enemy. It's not something broken inside you. It's a quiet teacher, a sign that something mattered, that you cared deeply, that your heart was fully open. Picture sadness like a gentle rain, soft, steady, soaking into the earth. It doesn't destroy, it nourishes, it softens, it makes room for growth. In the same way, your sadness makes room for healing. It connects you to others. It makes your heart more tender, more human. It reminds you that you're alive and capable of feeling something real. Take another breath. No need to rush. Whatever you're feeling right now, just feel it. No judgment, no pressure to fix it. Just let it be. And as you sit with that feeling, really sit with it, you might notice a quiet kind of light, not loud, not blinding, but soft, steady, like a candle in the dark. That's the light of acceptance, of knowing it's okay to feel what you feel, of being human in all its beauty and mess. Sadness brings us truth. It strips away the noise and shows us what really matters. And even in your darkest hours, the stars still shine. Even now, they're shining for you. So rest in this truth, just for a while. Sadness isn't a weakness. It's part of your strength. It's part of your story. And it belongs. Let it move through you. Let it soften you. Let it prepare you for hope, for light, for whatever comes next. You don't have to rush toward the happy ending. Just be here now. That's more than enough.
We've all felt it, that sinking feeling in your gut. The late night what-ifs, the missed chances, the words we didn't say, or the ones we wish we hadn't. Regret. It's not just an emotion, it's a mirror, a reflection of who we were and who we wanted to be. Sometimes it whispers, you could have done better. Other times it screams, you messed up. But here's the truth. Regret is a teacher, one of the harshest we'll ever know. It doesn't offer comfort, it offers clarity. Through regret we learn
what matters most, who we hurt along the way,
and what kind of person we don't want to be again. Still, we tend to run from it. We bury it under distractions, jokes, pride, or silence. But maybe, just maybe, regret is a second chance in disguise. A chance to reflect, to change, to grow. Not by rewriting the past, but by owning it. Because when we stop fearing our regrets and start listening to them, we unlock something rare. Wisdom. The kind you can't read in a book. The kind that costs something. The kind that sticks. So here's the real question. Will you let your regrets define you or refine you? A dream to make things better, to lead, to serve. But slowly, quietly, it shifts. What once felt noble becomes personal. What once sought the light starts flirting with the shadow. Leadership at its best is sacrifice. At its worst, it's seduction. Power isn't evil. It's a tool, neutral, just waiting. But when it ends up in human hands, it reveals, shows us who we really are and who we just might become. We like to think the corrupt were always corrupt, but the truth? Way more unsettling. Sometimes the worst tyrants started off as heroes, idealists, dreamers, until power leaned in and whispered, you deserve more. And the shift? It's not some big explosion. It's slow, subtle. It's choosing to silence dissent for efficiency, bending the truth for unity, taking credit for motivation. Little compromises that feel justified in the moment, but every one of them chips away at integrity. Until the mask becomes the face, and the mission becomes you. Power offers control, and control, man, that feels like safety. And in a world that's this uncertain, who wouldn't want a little more control? But here's the real danger. Power doesn't just protect, it isolates. People either start to fear you, or worse, they start to worship you. And either way, that's loneliness. To lead is to carry a mirror, not just for others, but for yourself. Every decision reflects your values. Every reaction exposes your fears. So ask yourself, do you lead to serve or to be seen? Do you lift others up or stand on their backs? It's easy to call out the ones who fall for power's trap. Harder to admit this. The seed of that temptation, it lives in all of us, in every ego, in every ambition. The answer isn't to reject power. It's to hold it carefully, accountably, to surround yourself with truth-tellers, not just fans or admirers. True leadership doesn't chase control. It earns trust. It resists the pull of self-interest. And when it stumbles, it owns it, learns from it, and starts again. The darkness in leadership is real, but you know what? So is the light. And that light, it begins with self-awareness. We say we want peace, stability, order. But then, why do we sometimes run straight into the fire? Why do we sabotage the good, wreck the calm, and invite the storm? There is something in us, quiet, restless, that craves chaos. Order is comfortable, predictable, but it can also feel suffocating. Too much structure, and life becomes a cage of routines. We begin to ache for disruption, even if it burns. Chaos, in contrast, is wild, uncontrolled, uncertain, but it reminds us we're alive. It shakes us out of numbness. Sometimes, we set fire to things not because we hate them, but because we need to feel something. A toxic relationship, a risky decision, a self-sabotaging act. We don't always destroy out of malice. Sometimes we destroy because it feels like a shortcut to transformation, a fast way to break free. But freedom gained through chaos often comes with scars. Chaos speaks to the parts of us we hide, the unprocessed anger, the buried grief, the desire to escape. In disorder, there's a strange kind of honesty. No pretending, just raw human reality, messy and unfiltered. It's why we find ourselves watching disasters unfold. In the world, on our screens, in our own lives. Not because we love pain, but because it reflects something real. Not all chaos is bad. Some of it is necessary. The forest needs fire to grow. Systems must break to be rebuilt. Sometimes we have to fall apart to come back whole. But the line is thin, and crossing it without reflection turns chaos into cruelty. Toward others, toward ourselves. The answer isn't to run from chaos, or to dive blindly into it. The answer is intention. To choose the mess we make. To disrupt with purpose, not out of impulse. Ask yourself, am I seeking liberation or just running from boredom? Am I breaking this because it's broken or because I am? Chaos will always be seductive, but power lies not in avoiding it and not in surrendering to it, but in learning when to step in and when to walk away. Disorder isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it's the beginning of truth.
Who are you when no one's around? And who are you when everyone's watching? Between those two versions of ourselves, something starts to form, a mask. Not to deceive, but to survive. See, we all wear masks, some to protect ourselves, some to fit in, some to become whatever the world seems to want from us. But after a while, do we even remember the face underneath? It starts off small, a smile when you're breaking inside, and I'm fine when you're anything but. A version of you that's polished, filtered, safe. We learn pretty early. Vulnerability isn't always welcome, so we adapt. We tweak ourselves just enough to be accepted, to avoid judgment, to earn approval. And for a while, it works. Until it doesn't. The mask helps. It gets us through tough rooms, awkward silences, and high expectations. In a world that judges quick and forgives slow, the mask makes sense. But here's the thing. The more you perform, the harder it is to just be. Eventually, you catch yourself wondering, would they still care if they saw the real me? Not the curated choke Instagram version, not the polished Joe got it all together persona, but the raw, messy, unfiltered truth. Because the scariest masks aren't the ones we wear for others. They're the ones we wear for ourselves. We tell ourselves we're good, that we're happy, that we've got it under control. But deep down, maybe we're just tired, or scared, or lost. We become actors in our own lives, forgetting we wrote the script. And the longer we wear the mask, the harder it is to connect. Like, really connect. Because how can anyone truly love you if no one really sees you? That kind of loneliness, It's different. It's not the kind where you're alone. It's the kind where you're surrounded, but still feel invisible. Taking off the mask, that's terrifying. It means showing your cracks, admitting you don't have all the answers, facing your own reflection without the filters. But there's freedom in that, because truth, even when it's awkward or messy, feels lighter than pretending. Real connection starts where performance ends, and the face underneath, even if it's unsure, even if it's scarred, that face deserves to be seen, that you's worthy of love. Look, we'll always wear masks, at least sometimes. That's just part of being human. But the key is to wear them consciously, to never forget they're just masks, not our identity. Because authenticity isn't about being raw 24/7. It's about choosing honesty, especially when it counts. Yeah, the mask might protect you, but only the real you underneath can truly be loved. Guilt's a quiet weight. It doesn't yell. It doesn't crash in like a storm. It just whispers, a soft echo in the back of your mind that won't shut up. A memory that sneaks in when the world finally goes still. We all carry something. A word we wish we could take back. A choice we can't undo. A moment that clings like smoke, long after the fire's gone out. Guilt doesn't always look like chains. Sometimes it shows up with a smile. But behind that grin, shame's still there. Quiet, heavy, hiding in plain sight. See, guilt is born in that space between who we were and who we wish we'd been. It doesn't come from hate. It comes from heart, from a conscience. It's proof we care, proof we feel. So yeah, in a strange way, guilt isn't the enemy. It's more like a signal, a kind of emotional compass. But hold on to it too tight, too long, and it stops guiding you. It starts trapping you. There's the guilt of action. I screwed up. The guilt of inaction. I didn't do enough. And then there's the hardest one. The guilt of survival. Why am I okay when others aren't? Sometimes we carry guilt for things we did, sometimes for things we didn't, and sometimes for things that were never even our fault. Because guilt doesn't always follow logic. It follows feeling. And feelings, they don't ask for permission. At first, guilt can be humbling. It teaches. It grounds us. But if we let it sit too long, it turns into punishment. We start to believe we deserve to feel this way. Like hanging on to the pain is how we make it right. We start confusing suffering with atonement. But pain by itself ain't redemption. It's just pain. And let's be real. Some of us are more afraid of forgiveness than guilt. Because forgiving ourselves feels like letting go. And letting go can feel like forgetting. Like saying, it didn't matter. But that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It just keeps the past from owning your future. To forgive yourself isn't about dodging blame. It's about facing it, owning it, learning from it, and letting it shape you into someone better. Guilt, when we meet it with honesty and a little self-compassion, can actually change us. It makes us reflect. It softens judgment. It helps us see the weight we put on others and the strength we have to make it right. Because here's the truth. You are not the worst thing you've done. You are what you choose to do next. Yeah, guilt is heavy. Because it matters. But you don't have to carry it forever. Say it, feel it, learn from it, and when you're ready, put it down. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It just means you're ready to stop bleeding for something that's already scarred over. You're allowed to move forward, even with scars, especially with scars.
Freedom. We chase it. We fight for it. We idolize it. To be free, to choose, to define ourselves, to live without limits, feels like the ultimate American dream. But what happens When freedom becomes too much, when having every option starts to feel like a trap. We live in a time of non-stop choices. What to believe, who to become, where to go, how to live. And yet, more choices don't always bring more peace. Sometimes they just bring more stress, more self-doubt, more fear of messing it all up. Freedom becomes pressure, and pressure turns into paralysis. To be free is to be fully responsible. There's no one else to blame, no one else to follow, just you and the weight of your own decisions. We say we want control, but with control comes the burden of owning our life, our mistakes, our direction. Freedom asks, what are you going to do with this life? And honestly, that question can be terrifying. Strangely enough, too much freedom can make us crave structure, even control, even submission. We start handing off our choices to authority, to belief systems, to algorithms, to routines so rigid they start to feel like cages. Not because we're weak, but because we're burnt out. It's easier to follow a script than to write your own. Sometimes we call something freedom when it's actually escape, escaping commitment, escaping vulnerability, escaping being accountable to anyone but ourselves. But freedom without connection leaves us feeling alone, and freedom without purpose, it leaves us empty. Just because we can do anything doesn't mean it's going to matter. Real freedom isn't about doing whatever we want. It's about doing what matters, what lines up with who we are, even when it's tough. It's about saying yes to what's real, and in doing that, saying no to everything else. Because limits, they're not always prisons. Sometimes they're direction. Sometimes they're the shape of a life that actually feels worth living. Freedom isn't about having no chains. It's about choosing the ones worth carrying. That's the paradox. We're most free when we give ourselves to something deeper than just choice. Meaning, purpose, love. These aren't the enemies of freedom. They're its home, love. We talk about it like it's always this beautiful, healing thing. Soft light, warm hands, steady hearts. And yeah, sometimes it is. But love's got shadows, too. And when we pretend they're not there, that's when it gets dangerous. There's a line where love stops being about connection and starts turning into control. It creeps in, the wanting, the needing, until it's not about being with someone, it's about having them. Every text that doesn't show up, every glance they give someone else, it burns, it twists inside you like a knife. That's not love anymore. That's obsession. We grow up on stories that mix up possession with passion. The movies tell us if you chase hard enough, break the rules, don't take no for an answer, you'll win the person. But real life? It doesn't work like that. Love isn't a prize. It's a partnership. Something you build brick by brick, with trust, with space, with choice. When we try to own someone, their time, their body, their attention, we're not loving them. We're trying to patch something in ourselves. A hole we don't want to face. A fear of being left, of being forgotten, of not being enough. The dark side of love is that it can look like devotion, but real love doesn't chain you up. It sets you free. It doesn't demand. It invites. It doesn't say, you're mine. It says, you're you, and I'm lucky to walk beside you. So maybe the hardest part of love is become letting it breathe, letting it hurt sometimes, letting people go if they need to. That's not weakness. That's strength. Because love, real love, isn't about holding tighter. It's about holding better. We've all felt it. That heat behind the eyes, that gnawing ache in your chest, that deep down urge to make them feel what they made you feel. Revenge. It often shows up wearing the mask of justice, like it's just about evening the score, balancing the scales, getting your dignity back, restoring what was taken from you. But what is revenge, really? Philosophers have debated it for centuries. Is it ever moral? Is it just raw emotion? Or is it something deeper, something primal? Revenge is born from pain, betrayal, humiliation, loss. It starts as a wound, then turns into a weapon. We tell ourselves they need to know how it feels. They've got to pay. But behind all that fire, there's something colder, a deep, aching sadness, a longing, not for vengeance, but for healing, for an apology that'll never come, for a past you wish you could rewrite. Revenge promises closure, but most of the time it just leaves a hollow echo. When we hit back, we don't just reflect the pain, we amplify it. One wound becomes two, two becomes four, and eventually you don't even remember who threw the first punch. History's full of this. Feuds, wars, families and generations ripped apart, all because someone just had to get even. As Confucius said, before you embark on a journey of revenge, dig 2 graves. The cycle eats away at both sides, and in the end, no one walks away clean. Revenge feels like justice, but it's justice twisted by pain. Real justice heals. Revenge just repeats. We say we want fairness, but most of the time, we want domination. We don't want balance. We want them to fall harder than we did, to feel our pain and our power. And when we do that, we become the very thing we once swore we'd never be. We inherit the same cruelty we couldn't stand in them. So what do we do with all that rage, that grief, that unbearable pull toward payback? We pause, we breathe, we grieve, and then, if we're brave enough, we forgive. Not to let them off the hook, not to excuse what happened, but to set ourselves free from carrying it anymore. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's refusing to keep the pain in circulation. It's breaking the cycle. Maybe the strongest kind of justice is peace. Revenge might feel like power, but real strength, that's restraint. Pain's gonna come, hurt's inevitable, but we get to decide what grows out of it. More violence or something deeper, something kinder. Even when everything in you screams for revenge, you can choose a different legacy, a quieter kind of power. There's something about the unknown that shakes us, not always in loud, dramatic ways, but in the quiet ones, the kind that keep you up, staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., heart pounding, mind racing, no obvious danger, just that creeping feeling that something's out there. Or worse, that something's coming. It's not just fear of monsters under the bed, or what's hiding in the dark. It's fear of change, of endings, of beginnings, of stepping into something without knowing where the hell it leads. See the brain? It hates open loops. It wants labels, wants control, wants a damn answer. But the unknown? It's a hallway with no lights on. And yeah, that freaks us out. So we start filling in the blanks, usually with the worst-case scenario. We assume the job won't come through, the relationship's gonna crash. That new chapter? Probably just another letdown waiting to happen. So we armor up, pull back, play it safe. But that safety? It's a prison made of what-ifs. Here's the thing, though. The unknown isn't always the enemy. Sometimes, it's exactly where the magic lives. The surprises, the growth, the damn I didn't see that coming. But I'm so glad it did. Yeah, it's scary, but fear? It's not always a red light. Sometimes, it's just your body saying, you're alive, and you're standing on the edge of something real. So next time the shadows creep in, and your brain starts spinning stories, pause, breathe. Don't run, walk forward, one step at a time. Because right there, on the other side of fear, that's where the real story begins. It's not hatred that destroys us, not anger, not rage. It's indifference. The quiet shrug, The turned away eyes. The stillness when someone's crying out. There's something deeply haunting about being met not with hostility, but with nothing at all. Indifference is colder than hate, because at least hate sees you. It means you mattered, enough to spark a reaction, even in fury. But indifference? It's erasure. A silent message, you're not even worth noticing. And sometimes, it's not just about others, it's about us. Those days when you stare at your reflection and feel nothing. We weren't born indifferent. We cared, loudly, recklessly, wholeheartedly. But somewhere along the way, caring started to feel risky. It hurt too much, let us down too many times. So we built walls, put on armor, played it cool just to protect ourselves. We told ourselves, if I don't care, I can't get hurt. And little by little, we forgot how to feel. Modern life, it praises chill. Being unbothered is seen as strength. Compassion, that's soft. We scroll past tragedy, swipe away injustice, shrink our own needs. Numb becomes normal. But that disconnection, it's not free. It costs us something, not just connection, but our humanity. Indifference doesn't just allow suffering, it amplifies it. History's darkest chapters, they weren't written by villains alone, but by the silent crowd. The ones who looked away, who said, that's not my business. And in our own lives, that same silence becomes distance. Relationships unravel. Friendships fade. People stop trying, not because they were hated, but because they felt invisible. So, what does it mean to care? It means taking a risk, letting your heart stay soft in a hard world. It means paying attention, even when it's easier to scroll past. It takes guts to feel, to show up emotionally when it's inconvenient, to speak up when silence is expected. Sometimes, the kindest thing we can do is simply care. Quietly, messily, honestly. Indifference feels safe, but it's a slow death of connection, of conscience, of soul. To care is to be alive, to feel, to ache, to love still. So in a world that tells you to numb out, choose presence, choose empathy, choose the warmth of noticing. Before the silence becomes we're told to be whole, to be perfect, to win. But the truth? We're shaped, not by our victories, but by our fractures. Failure, loss, disappointment. That's where the soul gets forged. Failure scares us. It hits our image, our pride, our plans. We treat it like a stain, something to scrub out, to cover up. But what if failure isn't the end of the story? What if it's actually where the story begins? To fail is to be human, to trip, to be humbled, to watch the illusion of control fall apart. And in that moment, when everything breaks, we start to see what really matters. Not ego, not perfection, but resilience, perspective, depth. As Leonard Cohen once wrote, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Failure teaches us what success never could. Patience, compassion, grit, empathy. It introduces us to ourselves. Not the filtered version we post online, but the raw, hurting, unfinished self that still gets back up. And maybe that's the bravest thing we ever do, to rise again, knowing we might fall. There's beauty in broken things, in scars that whisper, "I made it," in hands that keep building, even when they're still shaking. In Japanese culture, there's an art form called kintsugi, where broken pottery is mended with gold. Not to hide the cracks, but to honor them. To say, this is where I was broken, and this is where I healed. What if we did that with ourselves? What if success isn't about never falling, but about getting back up every time we do? What if growth isn't a straight line, but a spiral, with detours and dips that shape us as much as the highs? Maybe the goal isn't to be flawless, but to be real, to be whole, not because we're unbroken, but because we've embraced our brokenness. You are not your failures, but you are shaped by them. And if you listen close, failure doesn't whisper, "You're not enough." It says, there's more to learn, more to become. So hold your broken pieces gently. They're not your shame, they're your story. And there is beauty in every crack, because every crack lets the light come through. There comes a moment, quiet, heavy, when we stare into the void and ask, what's the point? And if we're being honest, sometimes we just don't have an answer. Nihilism doesn't come crashing in. It doesn't scream. It shows up in the silence, in the slow unraveling of meaning, in a quiet whisper, "None of this matters." And in our darkest hours, we almost believe it. Nihilism is seductive because it offers relief, a break from the pressure to care, from the weight of purpose, of striving, of hope. When life feels too big, too brutal, too random, meaninglessness can feel safer. If nothing matters, then failure doesn't hurt. Then love can't disappoint. Then pain becomes just static, not a story. It's a way to stop bleeding by choosing not to feel. But here's the thing nihilism won't tell you. It's not that nothing matters. It's that meaning takes work. And when you're burned out or broken, that work feels impossible. So we sink into the void and call it wisdom. We confuse feeling numb with being enlightened. But apathy? That's not clarity. It's exhaustion, a broken heart pretending not to care. Because when nothing matters, kindness becomes optional. Cruelty feels justified. Responsibility fades away. Nihilism doesn't just mute your hope. It turns down your conscience too. We think it's freedom, but really, it's drift. It's being untethered from anything solid. What starts as armor turns into a cage. A life without meaning isn't peace. It's just empty. Nihilism says there's no purpose. But buried underneath that voice is another, soft, shaky, honest. I wanted there to be one. We don't fall into nihilism because we believe in nothing. We fall because what we did believe in broke. Love betrayed us. Faith stayed silent. Dreams collapsed. So we bury our longing under a cool, distant philosophy. But that longing, it doesn't die. It just hides. And here's the twist. If nothing inherently matters, then anything can. And that's power, to make meaning out of the mess. To choose love, knowing it could hurt. To build beauty in a world that breaks. That's not delusion. That's defiance. That's resistance to the void. Camus called it revolt. To live boldly, even when the universe says nothing back. To say, maybe the world means nothing, but I do. Yeah, sometimes life feels hollow, and maybe it is, sometimes. But even in that, truth has a strange price. It sets you free, and sometimes leaves you completely alone. To see clearly is a gift, but it's also a weight, because once you know, you can't unknow, and once you say it, you can't take it back. Truth isn't always noble. It doesn't always feel like light. Sometimes it isolates. Sometimes it offends. And sometimes it costs you everything. We love to call truth beautiful, and it is, but it's also sharp. It slices through illusion, through comfort, through denial. And let's be real, people don't always thank you for handing them the knife. Most folks don't stay silent because they don't know the truth. They stay silent because they're scared of what it'll cost. Speaking up might mean losing the job, the friendship, the love, the place where you used to belong. So what do? We stay quiet. We play along. We laugh when we want to scream. We bite our tongue. Because truth can be lonely, but belonging feels safe. Still, what's the price of that comfort? There's a special kind of loneliness that comes from seeing what others won't. You walk into a room and feel like the only one who notices the cracks in the walls, the tension behind the smiles, the truth underneath the pretty words. And it's not pride, it's grief. It's a quiet kind of exile from the comfort of not knowing. And yet, you'd still rather be awake in pain than asleep in a lie. Standing for truth isn't about shouting. It's about staying still when the world tells you to move. It's saying, no, this isn't right. Even when nobody's standing next to you. Integrity? It often looks like being alone. But it also brings peace. Not the surface kind, the deep kind. The kind that lives in your bones. Because there's a quiet dignity in being true, even if it means being on your own. But truth, when it's offered with love, can be a bridge, not a sword. It doesn't always have to tear things down. It can open eyes. It can heal. The point isn't to win, it's to reveal. And maybe real courage isn't just about knowing the truth. It's about holding it gently enough that others feel safe enough to see it too. Truth won't always reward you. It won't always comfort you. Sometimes it'll leave you standing in the dark with nothing but your conscience. But you know what? That's enough. Because when the world is spinning in lies, even a quiet truth can be an anchor. So if you find betrayal cuts deeper than violence, not because of what was done, but who did it. It's not the knife in the back from a stranger that hits the hardest. It's the one from a friend, a partner, someone you let into your world, into your heart. See, trust in this life, it's a sacred kind of gamble. When you trust someone, you're handing them the blade, looking them in the eye and saying, I believe you won't use it on me. But when they do, when that trust gets shattered, it's not just the relationship that breaks. It's your sense of reality, your sense of people, of yourself. Because betrayal, it doesn't just stab your back, it messes with your mind. Suddenly, love feels like manipulation, loyalty, just leverage, and honesty starts sounding like a setup. Philosophers have been chewing on this for centuries. Think Brutus and Caesar, Judas and Jesus. These stories ain't just history lessons, they're reflections. Proof that even the closest bonds can snap under pressure, pride, or power. Being betrayed makes you question everything. Was any of it real? Did they ever care at all? But deep down, it also shows our own soft spots, our need to trust, our craving to belong, and sometimes our habit of ignoring the red flags. And the ones who betray, they're not always villains in black hats. Sometimes they're just weak, insecure, caught up in justifying their actions with words like had to, deserved, or worse, silence. Yeah, betrayal leaves scars, but scars, they tell stories. They wake you up. They teach you what really matters, who's worth your loyalty, and who just wore the mask well. Forgiveness might happen, or it might not. That's your call. But to truly understand betrayal is to face the hard truth. We're all a little imperfect. We all mess up. And sometimes we let the wrong people too close because we want to believe they're good. Betrayal isn't just a broken friendship or failed love story. It's a crossroads, a test of your character, of your resilience, of the meaning you make from the mess. And sometimes the biggest growth doesn't come from being loved, but from being broken and choosing who the hell you're gonna be after. Desire's a hell of a thing. It moves us, shapes us, drives us to build, to create, to fall in love. But let's be real. Not all desires come from some noble place. Some creep in quiet, whispering from the shadows. They're dark, off limits, and somehow that's what makes them feel so beautiful. Ever wonder why the stuff we shouldn't want ends up being the hardest to resist? See, desire isn't about logic. It's not about morals. It's primal, a raw hunger that skips the thinking part and hits us right in the gut. And the more we try to bury it, the louder it gets. Psychologists call it the forbidden fruit effect. Philosophers, they just call it being human. What we can't have becomes what we want most. There is this razor-thin line between wanting something and needing it, between a passing craving and full-blown obsession. Yeah, desire can be powerful. It can spark passion, connection, even art. But let's not lie to ourselves. It can also destroy. It burns bridges, burns boundaries, burns us. We chase people who break us. We kill ourselves chasing success. We numb out with pleasure that doesn't mean a damn thing. We go after power and lose our purpose. And still, we run toward it, eyes wide open. Because sometimes the darkness promises things the light just can't. But here's the thing. Just because we have dark desires doesn't make us evil. It makes us real. They show us the parts we hide, the wounds we haven't healed, the needs we've never spoken out loud. And maybe understanding our desire doesn't mean giving into it. Maybe it means asking the right questions. What am I really hungry for? Where's this urge coming from? And who the hell will I become if I chase it? Desire isn't good. It isn't bad. It's just a force, a mirror, a message. And sometimes, when we stop running from what we want in the dark, we finally figure out what we need in the light. We talk about darkness like it's something to fear, avoid, a threat. Just the absence of light. But sometimes, darkness feels a little too much like home. Quiet, still, safe. Not because it's warm or joyful, but because it's familiar. When the world gets too loud, too bright, too demanding, we pull back. Not into chaos, but into stillness, into the shadows. We all wear masks. We perform. We smile, even when we're breaking inside. We keep moving, even when we're bone tired. But in the dark, there are no eyes watching, no expectations, no pressure to pretend we're okay. The comfort of darkness, it isn't about giving up. It's about letting go, even just for a little while. Letting go of appearances, of obligations, of the heavy, exhausting weight of being seen. And yeah, we often mistake that retreat for weakness, but darkness, it's not always despair. Sometimes it's recovery, a womb, not a grave. It's a space to grieve, to breathe, to just be without performance. Because remember, plants grow in the dark soil. Stars are born in the black of space. And we We often heal where no one's watching. But here's the thing. Comfort can become a cage. Stay in the shadows too long, and they start to shape you. Solitude turns into isolation. Rest turns into avoidance. And healing? It stalls, afraid of stepping into the light again. So we've got to ask ourselves, am I hiding or am I healing? Am I safe or just stuck? Darkness isn't the enemy. It's the canvas that lets us rediscover our light. So yeah, retreat if you need to. Breathe. Rest. Disappear for a bit if that's what helps. But don't forget, the night, it's not meant to keep you. It's meant to transform you, so you can rise again, softer, stronger, ready to face the sun.
Nobody wants to suffer. Pain, we avoid it. We run from it. We try to numb it, drown it out, pretend it's not there. But what if suffering isn't just something to survive? What if it's something to understand? What if, in some strange, unexpected way, pain has a purpose? Could it be that suffering can actually be good? That it can be ethical? Or is that just a story we tell ourselves to make the hurt a little easier to carry? See, pain is more than just discomfort. It's information. It's a signal. It tells us something's not right. A cut, a loss, a break in the rhythm of our lives. But here's the thing. Pain doesn't only point to damage. It also marks transformation. Muscles tear before they grow. Hearts break before they open. Sometimes our whole identity falls apart, so something new can come through. Pain becomes a threshold, a doorway, a wake-up call that forces us to ask, who am I now and who am I becoming? But it's not just our suffering, is it? We see pain in others, friends, family, strangers, and we ask, is this fair? Is this necessary? Some folks say yes. They say pain builds character, that without it we'd stay shallow, we'd never grow empathy, never grow up. But others push back, and they've got a point, because glorifying pain, that's a slippery slope. It can blind us to injustice. Not all suffering teaches. Some pain just wrecks people, leaves scars, leaves silence, leaves nothing. So where's the line? What's the difference between hard but meaningful and just plain cruelty? Here's the real truth. Suffering on its own doesn't make us wiser. It's what we do with it. Some grow bitter, some grow bold, some turn pain into poetry, into protest, into purpose. From ancient Stoics to modern psychologists, from Buddha to your neighborhood therapist, they all circle around one core idea. Pain is part of the deal. It's not punishment. It's part of being alive. So maybe the better question isn't why we suffer, but what we do with that suffering. What meaning we choose to give it. So can pain ever be good? Not just by itself, but maybe in what it awakens, in what it reveals, in what it makes possible. Pain can break us, and sometimes, yeah, it does. But it can also shape us, refine us, stretch us into something more. And maybe, in the quiet aftermath, in the rubble of what once was, we'll find the first sketch of who we're meant to become. Death. It's the one truth we all share. Doesn't matter who you are, rich or poor, famous or forgotten, death doesn't care. It doesn't discriminate, doesn't negotiate. It waits. And yet, we spend most of our lives pretending it isn't there. We chase permanence. We chase legacy. We chase youth. All just trying to outrun a shadow that never stops following us. But what if we stopped running? What if we turned around and faced it? See, we don't really talk about death in this country, not openly, not honestly. We wrap it in soft words, passed away, gone too soon, resting in peace. But underneath all that quiet is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of pain, fear of not existing at all. Philosophers, poets, and thinkers, they've been wrestling with this for centuries.
Is death the end or the beginning of something else? Is it something to dread or is it the very thing that gives life its meaning? And here's the twist. It's death that reminds us how to live. Knowing we won't be here forever, it makes the little things matter more. That sunset you almost didn't notice, now it feels sacred. That hug from someone you love, suddenly it's holy. Time isn't just hours on a clock anymore. It's the most precious thing we've got. Memento mori. Remember you must die. Not to scare you, but to help you see clearly. It's not a threat. It's a guide, a compass that strips life down to what really counts. Because death isn't just an ending, it's a mirror. It shows us our regrets, our attachments, our unfinished stories, but it also shows us our values, what we truly care about. Some people let the fear of death shrink them, make them play small, but others, they let it sharpen them. Because once you make peace with death, once you stop pretending it's not coming, you start to live different. You walk lighter, speak more honestly, love a little deeper. Not despite the end, but because of it. Death is inevitable. But meaning, that's up to us. We create it every day. And in that choice, we don't escape death. We rise above it. Because to truly live is to walk side by side with the shadow and still choose to shine. Ambition. It's something we celebrate around here. We're told to dream big, to hustle, to rise, to win, to become. And honestly, that sounds pretty great. A life with purpose, success, legacy. It's what we're all aiming for, right? But here's the thing. What happens when ambition starts to consume more than it creates? What's the cost of always needing more? Because ambition starts small, just a spark, a vision of something better, a gut feeling that says, I'm meant for more than this. And that's not a bad thing. That's how great things begin. But if you're not careful, that spark, it turns into a fire. And fire doesn't care what it burns down. First it's your sleep, then it's your weekends, then it's your time with the people who matter most. Then, maybe, your integrity. You start skipping dinner to chase deals. Start saying, just one more project, just one more win, just one more step. Before long, you're not climbing the ladder. You're chasing a shadow that never stops moving. And here's the part nobody talks about. Ambition isn't just about what you want. It's about what you're willing to become to get it. Would you bend the truth? Use people? Trade peace for profit? Would you still recognize the person staring back at you in the mirror? Because power without reflection, ambition without boundaries, it can twist you into someone you never meant to be. And the wild part is, sometimes you don't even realize it's happening until it's too late. Because ambition doesn't settle. It shifts the goalposts. You hit one milestone and it whispers, not enough. You're still behind. You should be doing more. It creates a hunger no trophy can satisfy. It makes rest feel like weakness. And suddenly, you start thinking your worth is tied to your output. But real success, it's not just about where you end up. It's about how you got there and what you had to leave behind on the way. Because here's the truth. Ambition can build you up, or it can burn you out. It can free you or own you. So yeah, chase your dreams. Go all in. But know the price. Know where the line is. And know what parts of yourself you're never, ever willing to trade. Because no dream is worth it if you lose your soul getting there. Envy. It's a quiet kind of poison. Doesn't shout, doesn't rage. It whispers, and it sneaks in. Not when we're by ourselves, but when we see someone else with what we wish we had. Their success, their beauty, their peace, their life. And suddenly, ours feels smaller, less shiny, not enough. But envy doesn't come from just wanting. It comes from comparing. We don't envy the stars in the sky. We envy our neighbor, our coworker, our best friend. Why? Because envy needs proximity. It feeds off what's close. It whispers, if they have it, why don't you? It doesn't nudge us to be grateful for what we've got. It nudges us to resent what we don't. And here's the deeper cut. Envy's not just about desire. It's about identity. We start feeling less than because someone else seems like more. But envy? It's blind to the full story. We see the smile, not the stress. The wins, not the worries. The curated highlight reel, not the blooper reel playing behind the scenes. And still, we ache for things that may never be ours. And in that aching, we forget what is. Now sure, some folks say envy can be useful. It can light a fire under us, show us what we really want, push us to grow. But if we don't keep it in check, it eats away at us. It twists admiration into bitterness, turns someone else's win into our loss, turns connection into competition. Spinoza once said, envy is sorrow for another's good. And when we build our worth on someone else's downfall, we lose a piece of our own soul. Envy's a mirror, but mirrors can lie. They reflect, but they distort too. What someone else has isn't proof of what we lack. Their light doesn't dim ours. So next time envy whispers, don't shove it down. Don't run from it. Listen, learn, and then look inward. Because the answer isn't in chasing their path. It's in owning yours, with clarity, with confidence, and with peace. Envy. It's a quiet kind of poison. Doesn't shout, doesn't rage. It whispers, and it sneaks in. Not when we're by ourselves, but when we see someone else with what we wish we had. Their success, their beauty, their peace, their life. And suddenly, ours feels smaller, less shiny, not enough. But envy doesn't come from just wanting. It comes from comparing. We don't envy the stars in the sky. We envy our neighbor, our coworker, our best friend. Why? Because envy needs proximity. It feeds off what's close. It whispers, if they have it, why don't you? It doesn't nudge us to be grateful for what we've got. It nudges us to resent what we don't. And here's the deeper cut. Envy's not just about desire. It's about identity. We start feeling less than because someone else seems like more. But envy? It's blind to the full story. We see the smile, not the stress. The wins, not the worries. The curated highlight reel, not the blooper reel playing behind the scenes. And still, we ache for things that may never be ours. And in that aching, we forget what is. Now sure, some folks say envy can be useful. It can light a fire under us, show us what we really want, push us to grow. But if we don't keep it in check, it eats away at us. It twists admiration into bitterness, turns someone else's win into our loss, turns connection into competition. Spinoza once said, envy is sorrow for another's good. And when we build our worth on someone else's downfall, we lose a piece of our own soul. Envy's a mirror, but mirrors can lie. They reflect, but they distort too. What someone else has isn't proof of what we lack. Their light doesn't dim ours. So next time envy whispers, don't shove it down. Don't run from it. Listen, learn, and then look inward. Because the answer isn't in chasing their path. It's in owning yours, with clarity, with confidence, and with peace. War. We picture it as violence, explosions, blood, chaos. But truth is, war starts long before the first shot is fired. It starts up here, in the mind, in fear, in pride, in the belief that talking isn't enough anymore, that peace just isn't on the table. War isn't just boots on the ground. It's belief systems clashing, old wounds passed down like heirlooms, stories we're taught about us and them. We go to war for power, for safety, for control. Sometimes, yeah, even for peace. Philosopher Thomas Hobbes once said,
among spontaneous, without some kind of authority keeping us in check. Fight with your war, every man against every man.
But then there's Rousseau, who saw it differently. He believed war wasn't natural, that it's born from broken systems, from greed, inequality, from leaders sending others to die for causes they won't fully admit. So what is it, really? Is war something wired into us, or something we're trained into? Can war ever be just? Is there even such a thing as a good war? Just war theory says maybe. If the cause is righteous, if civilians are protected, if all other options are exhausted.
But let's be real. The real world doesn't follow clean rules. Innocents still get caught in the crossfire. Lines blur. And what started as justice starts looking a whole lot like...
We say we're fighting for freedom, but sometimes it's ego in uniform. We say we're fighting for peace, but peace built on ashes still smells like smoke. And not all wars happen on battlefields. Some wars, they're quiet, fought in homes, in relationships, in minds. A war between who we are and who we're told to be. Between what hurts and what heals. Between our anger and our better judgment. Maybe to understand conflict out there, we've got to face what's going on in here. Because war shows us what we're capable of, at our ugliest, and at our most courageous. But real strength, it's not about how much we can destroy. It's about how much we can hold back. And maybe the most powerful victory isn't beating an enemy. It's refusing to become one. Progress. We treat it like gospel. Faster, smarter, bigger, more. New cities popping up, new tech dropping every week. Fresh ideas that promise to change everything. We call it evolution. We call it growth. But somewhere in that full-speed sprint forward, we forget to ask the most basic question. At what cost? Not every step forward is progress. Not every upgrade improves us. Yeah, we're moving fast. But are we moving right? We're innovating like crazy. But do we ever stop to think about what we're leaving behind? Every new gadget claims to make life easier, but ends up making us feel more alone. Every industrial boom brings jobs and cash, but also pollution, burnout, whole communities pushed aside. We build skyscrapers that scrape the heavens, while quietly burying the things that made us human in the first place. Progress isn't neutral. Someone always pays the price. The workers nobody sees, the towns nobody visits, the planet we all share. Factories poison rivers, but it's always the poorest neighborhoods that drink from them. Tech giants rake in billions, while regular folks hustle just to keep up. Globalization links the world, but tears local cultures apart. Still, we rarely pause. We just keep repeating the same story. More is always better. forward is always right. But maybe the real issue isn't progress itself. It's how we define it. What if growth wasn't about domination, but restoration? Not about speed, but depth. Not expansion, but balance. If progress burns out our souls or wrecks our planet, can we still call it progress? Or is it just collapse in slow motion? Wearing a shiny suit. This isn't about rejecting the future. It's about shaping it with wisdom, with compassion, with restraint. So before we chase the next big thing, ask yourself, are we truly advancing or just accelerating into the unknown? Because the dark side of progress isn't in the tools we create. It's in what we forget while creating them. And maybe the real measure of growth isn't what we gain, but what we choose not to lose.
We love to hate the villain, the monster, the traitor, the killer. They're everything we fear, everything we swear we are not. Or at least, that's what we tell ourselves. But what if the villain isn't just some outsider? Is a mirror. See, we create villains to feel better about ourselves, to draw a clean line between good and evil, to say, they're the problem, not me. But take a closer look. Villains aren't born, they're built. Built from pain, from rejection, from hard choices that honestly don't look so different from our own. They lie, so do we. They hunger for power, same. They want to be seen, heard, understood, don't we all? And suddenly, that big gap between them and us doesn't feel so wide anymore. So why are we so drawn to villains? Because deep down, they're free in ways we are not. They say what we're afraid to say, do what we won't admit we want to do. They act on rage, pride, jealousy, all the stuff we shove way down and call bad. They don't play by the rules. And let's be real, a part of us loves that. And then comes the question that really haunts us. If I lived their life, would I have turned out the same? Truth is, the scariest monsters aren't the ones we fight out there. They're the ones we refuse to face in here. When we deny our own darkness, we throw it onto others. We judge, we shame, we dehumanize, and the whole ugly cycle just keeps spinning. But what if we looked into the monster's eyes and saw ourselves? That's where the real change starts. Not by pretending we're perfect, but by owning our shadows, learning from them. Because monsters don't just hide under kids' beds. Sometimes they smile in the mirror. Sometimes they grow out of silence or from old wounds we never healed. But that doesn't mean we're doomed. It means we're human. Understanding the villain doesn't mean excusing them. It means breaking the cycle and realizing the line between hero and monster is thinner than we think. Because, in the end, the most terrifying monsters aren't the ones we invent. They're the ones we become when we stop being honest about who we really are. Isolation. For some folks, it's a prison. For others, a kind of sanctuary. We're scared of being alone, but deep down, we crave it too. A space that's quiet, unbothered, free from the pressure to perform. In a world that never shuts up, silence can feel like a breath of fresh air or a weight you can't shake. There's a big difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the ache that someone's missing. Solitude is the peace of finally being with yourself. When we isolate, we come face to face with the parts of us we've been dodging, the questions we've been too busy to ask, the truths we've tried to bury, the inner voice we drown out with noise and distraction. But in solitude, we're not performing, not chasing approval. We're just there, fully present, And that kind of presence, it's terrifying, but it's also freeing because isolation strips away the noise. And what's left is real, raw you. Sometimes that's a dark place. Sometimes it's where the light finally breaks through. Think about it. Philosophers, monks, mystics, they didn't run from the world. They stepped back from it, not to escape, but to transform. Because in the quiet, in the stillness, that's where we hear the truth. But here's the thing. Even silence has a shadow. Too much time alone, and your thoughts start turning on you. The quiet turns cold. The stillness, empty. We're wired for connection, for reflection. We need people. Not all the time, but enough to keep our soul from shrinking. So the question isn't, should I be alone? It's, for how long? And what am I looking for? Because isolation isn't the villain here. It's the mirror, the mentor, the reset button. It shows us who we are so we can step back into the world clearer, stronger, more real. Sometimes you gotta shut out the noise to finally hear your own voice, the one that's been whispering beneath it all along. Memory. It's a strange thing, isn't it? It doesn't just bring back the past, it reshapes it. A familiar scent, a song from the radio, just one word out of nowhere, and boom. You're right back in a moment you thought you buried years ago. But let's be real, memory ain't always warm and fuzzy. Sometimes it hurts like hell. Sometimes it clings to you like a shadow you can't shake, no matter how fast you run. We like to tell ourselves the past is over, done, filed away. But memory doesn't play by those rules. It shows up uninvited, in quiet moments, in our dreams, when we're just trying to breathe. A mistake, a heartbreak, a betrayal, and it doesn't come back like a movie, something you just watch. No, it hits you. You relive it. Nietzsche once said, memory is the ghost of our choices. And let's be honest, some ghosts don't go quietly. Not all pain leaves a scar you can see. Some wounds, they open up every time we remember. And your mind? It can feel like a damn battlefield. You question what you said, what you should have said. You rewrite the scenes, edit, delete, rewind, trying to survive a story that already happened. But here's the hard truth. Memory isn't fact. It's a reconstruction. It's like a mirror warped by time, twisted by feeling, bent by what we wish we'd done. And yet, we hold on to it, even when it burns, even when it bleeds. Because letting go feels like letting go of ourselves. So, how do you carry the memories that still sting? You don't forget. You integrate. You stop stuffing the past down and start listening to it. What did it teach you? How did it shape you? Who are you now because of what you lived through? Some memories never leave, but with time, they stop defining you. They stop being cages and become keys. The past, it can't be changed, but your relationship with it, that's in your hands. Memory will come knocking. Let it in. Just don't let it take the wheel. Because even in the darkest moments you carry, there's light, there's truth, there's you, still standing, still breathing. Despair. It's more than just feeling sad. It's when sadness goes quiet, when meaning falls apart, and hope feels like some kind of cruel joke. It's like hitting the bottom of a well. No light, no noise, just weight. Even breathing starts to feel like work. But here's the thing. Even down there, in that heavy silence, something still stirs. Despair shows up when expectations die, when the future you pictured crashes and burns, when you've taken hit after hit, and life just won't cut you a break. We say stuff like, it's hopeless. Why bother? And sometimes we mean it. Thinkers like Camus, Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, they didn't write from the mountaintop. They wrote from the pit. They didn't glamorize despair. They studied it, lived it, because being human, it means breaking sometimes. Here's the twist, though. Despair can be honest. It rips off the mask. No more pretending, no more sugarcoating, just you and the truth. What actually matters? What doesn't? Who are you when there's nothing left holding you together? Despair, it's a reckoning, a gut check with yourself. And yeah, it hurts, but sometimes that pain, it clears the fog, and in that raw, hollow space, something new can grow. Not the sunshine and rainbows kind of hope. Nah, more like the gritty, scarred-up kind. The kind that's seen hell and still decides to show up. Sometimes, hope is just choosing to get out of bed, to take one more step, to say, maybe. Even when every part of you is screaming no. Camus once wrote, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me lay an invincible summer. That ain't cheap hope. That's hope that's been earned, beaten, bruised, and still breathing." Despair is real, but it ain't the end. It's not a wall. It's a fork in the road. And sometimes, when your whole world falls apart, that's when something real begins. A different kind of hope, not based on promises, but on presence, just being here. So if you're sitting in despair, don't rush it, don't numb it. Feel it, let it speak. Then, get up anyway. Because the light that really matters, it's the one that finds you when you've stopped looking for it. We've walked through shadows, sat with sorrow, stared into the void. We felt heartbreak, faced betrayal, lost love, questioned everything. And yet, here we are, still breathing, still standing, still becoming. Because darkness, it's not the end of the story. It's a chapter, part of the journey. And sometimes, it's where the real transformation begins. See, we don't choose suffering. It just shows up, uninvited, unwanted, unfair, a loss that rips the floor out from under you, a failure that crushes your confidence, a betrayal you never saw coming, a moment when everything just breaks. What we believed, who we were, what we thought we needed, all gone. And in the wreckage, something else quietly begins. A kind of clarity, a letting go, a becoming. Because suffering doesn't just break us. It reveals us, it refines us, it remakes us. Let's be real. The deepest truths in life, they rarely come wrapped in joy. They're forged in the fire, in the pain, in the rebuilding. We find what truly matters when everything else falls away. We discover what can't be lost, even in loss. And in grief, we meet the kind of love that never really leaves. Look, transformation ain't always beautiful at first. It's raw, it's messy, it's exhausting. But the cracks pain leaves behind, yeah, that's where the light starts to pour in. Pain by itself doesn't make you noble, but what you do with it, now that can be powerful. We can let it harden us or soften us, shut us down or wake us up. We can run from it or we can lean in and learn. That's where the real light lives, not in escaping the darkness, but in walking through it, eyes wide open. And when we come out the other side, we're not untouched. We're transformed. That's the human paradox, right? We break, we fall, we suffer, and somehow we rise. Not the same, but deeper, wiser, more real, because it's not just the light that makes us whole. It's the dark that teaches us how to hold it. So, if you've known pain, and you still choose to love, still choose to hope, still choose to show up,
You are the light. You are the proof that something beautiful can grow from the dark. This was never about walking into darkness just to suffer. It was about understanding it, making peace with it, and walking through it to find something more honest, more human, more alive. So, thank you for still being here, for choosing to keep going, for carrying the light forward. Because the light, it's not waiting at the end. It's already in you.